Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Spaceless Realms Podcast, the one and only legendary Spaceless Realms Podcast. You will not get this anywhere else in the cosmos. This is the only place. This is the infinite regeneration of energy, Spaceless Realms. So yeah, Kalki, my brother.
Yo, yo, I feel like we're in an episode of the Midnight Gospel. We're about to take you on an acid trip.
We are indeed. This podcast is filled with acid trips of the highest dosage, the highest macro doses of any highest potent psychedelic. So yeah,
Shamanic evolution. Sometimes you need a jump start. You need that full battery boost.
exactly. So yeah, sit back, relax, let go, and surrender to the process of divine revolution and evolution. So yeah, today we will be speaking about how how much you can really put yourself through and how much you can actually withstand beyond the certain false limitation and boundaries that you set over on yourself over time. For example, I went for a run today and breaking past these certain mental boundaries that I placed on myself, I was seeing how like my level of awareness and level of thought was continually raising and expanding to be able to adapt to what I was putting myself through. So yeah, let's talk about the process of growth, the process of evolution, and yeah, man, start off there. What do you think?
That's amazing. Mutant evolution is actually one of the most fascinating subjects in existence, I would say. And
Yeah.
looking at the ways we can push our bodies beyond human limits, so-called normal limits, is something that's been done throughout the ages by avatars, by sages, by prophetesses, oracles, martial artists,
Mm,
legendary figures,
mm,
heroes, demigods, demi-divinities, goddesses, Tirthankaras, Bodhisattvas, Buddhas, Nirmanakayas, Taras, Radhas, Kalis. There's infinite amounts of divine feminine and divine masculine and non-binary oracular genders and forms of consciousness that have evolved through time to push themselves to superhuman status and limitations. So I
mm,
think this is like the most amazing subject we could actually touch upon.
mm. Yeah, and I realize like when you take yourself out of the environment that you're usually in, and then you put yourself in nature, your ego slowly fades away, and then you merge with existence. For example, like yeah, just letting go and surrendering to the divine is so key. It's so important. Also, your thumb is on the camera, so maybe your thumb a little bit to the right.
Oh shit.
Okay.
I barely even noticed. I thought it was just like a furniture piece in the back.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, like for example, like our essence is made up of stardust from limitless galaxies, and we are connected to so much throughout the entire spectrum of existence. And going in nature and just soaking that all in and letting it go into every pore of your being. So it's so healing. It's amazing.
Yes, it definitely is. I mean, I've been living off grid for quite a while now. It's been like 5 years, I think, approximately. And I go on and off grid bits and pieces, obviously. But even living in the Gulf Islands, squatting in Vancouver for a bit, but high class, the experiences were unforgettable. I remember pushing myself in cold training too, and I still push myself these days. I don't do nearly as much because I want to get to the heat training aspect. But these
Mhm.
are people don't realize how much the cold and the heat can jolt you can boost yourself both from cold and heat fusion principles, and you can actually become you master in a sense the bipolar realms of extremities of cold weathers and hot weathers. You master the storms and the tempests. If you've lived in extreme conditions, if you've pushed yourself in different disciplines. I've pushed myself driving, training, heat and cold resistant sweat lodges at extreme temperatures, like going into one of the hottest saunas in the world, literally at 155 degrees Celsius. And I barely lasted a minute, but I was in there. You know what I mean? Like that's something that some people could say that they dream about doing sometimes in their escape from reality. But at the end of the day, once you start living that, it becomes like a healthy addiction, I would say, and it's something you want to just
Yeah.
keep pushing the limits in.
Yeah, a healthy addiction is a very good way to put it. Like 4 years ago, like 4 to 5 years ago, when I got into like self betterment and self, just like focusing on who I can evolve into, I started with running. And when I was running, I would listen to like a lot of like motivational tapes to just propel me to go further and build my mindset in those difficult times. I feel like whoever's listening to this, and if you're struggling right now in your life, focus on your mindset and just be able to withstand those difficult times to be able to, yeah, you'll look back and laugh, you know?
That is very true. You know, it really is true, because I think back more and more to like my previous life, in this life, you know, to being like a youth, to being a young youth, to being a youth, to being a teenager, to being a you know, an adult, a young adult, to being like an older adult, to aging backwards. And this is something too that's very interesting that could blow people's minds without the acid, is you can actually age backwards. Antioxidants are literally there to stop oxidization. What is oxidization? Rust, decay, decomposition in, you know, inorganic matter. But in organic matter, essentially oxidants are problematic in the body. When you have too much oxidization, you'll end up aging faster. But if you have antioxidants, which are usually found in many different berries, then you have large doses of antioxidants, you stay youthful. So the key to life is not only not eating flesh and byproducts and everything, but to actually eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. With Rasta people know this already.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of which, stay ital, keep it ital. You know, herb is the healing of the nation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's nice that I basically work in like a big grocery store. So I'm just always like snacking on fruits and veggies throughout the day.
Mm.
I'm just eating like lots of apples and strawberries and raspberries and stuff like that while I work.
That's amazing, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Imagine those are the original candies and desserts. Fruits is the desserts of nature, you know. But then we make all these desserts made from byproducts from animals and
Yeah.
processed chemical, bleach, sugar, and all kinds of shit. And it's like, oh, it tastes so good. It tastes kind of like fruits. Why don't you try real fruit? You
It's
know,
so
or it tastes like
weird.
chocolate. I'm like, try the real thing.
Bro, it's so weird when you say it like that. Hmm.
That's why I've had a lot of Rasta brethren and sister, and they laugh. They just let the zombies kill themselves. They'll die from bad nutrition eventually. It's good. It's good humor. It's really good humor, because at the end of the day, if people want to pollute, some people tell me, "Oh man, I'm gonna die of something anyways. I might as well. I'm gonna have a hamburger and I'm gonna smoke some commercial cigarettes. I'm gonna go to McDonald's and I'm gonna have a Tim Hortons coffee. I don't care about slave labor." I'm like, brethren, you're going straight to hell, and you're going to hell in this life, but you're gonna go to hell even more in the next one. But I don't know how to explain that to them. Sometimes I have to be rude and direct. Other times I'm like, okay, I'll deal with this one, because it used to be an old friend. You know, like one of my friends recently, a really good brethren of mine, he Pahana, he's coming to visit soon. Actually, he's coming probably early May. And Pahana in the Hopi prophecies is the white brother who's the friend to all indigenous peoples. And he's like part Caucasian, but like, you know, like part Asiatic, but like he looks mostly like, you know, he's not a typical white passing person. He looks like a warrior. You know, but it's crazy because he's a water treatment specialist. He does a bunch of crazy shit. He's lent me a Kangen filter for 4 years, and you know how much those things worth? Like
What
it's
is
like
that?
$4,500 or something for one. It's the most advanced water filtration system on the planet. Something else, if somebody doesn't know, if you get a Japanese Kangen filter, and this isn't a promotion for that, but it is. I'm not paid for them. I don't distribute them, but I would tell you, get yourself a Kangen filter if you can afford it. Get it secondhand. Get it from some source that you can trust, and those can filter out even chlorine and fluoride. So like it filters out heavy metals, it oxidizes, alkalinizes the water,
Wow.
it activates electrolytes in it. It's crazy. Like it's really super advanced science. Japanese people know their shit.
Mm. Bro, Japan is so advanced. Like their trains, their bathrooms, their society, everything.
Civilization is extremely efficient and very eco-friendly. And
Very
they have mostly an
eco-friendly.
ital diet, flash fried ital diet, like in many different styles, obviously. But like the, you know, sushi diet generally is super healthy if you use the right type of rice, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
The main
especially.
issue at the end of the day is really slave labor and exploitation. Because if you bring everything back to indigenous cultures, and Japanese has a rich history of indigenous traditions and Buddhism, Shintoism, like, you know, Taoism, there's more in China, but still, you know, there's blends and amalgams. And if you look at northern Japanese Ainu people, they're like some of the most primordial civilizations on the face of the planet. They're the ones who actually who came over across the Bering Strait, and actually that's how First Nations were born in North Americas, you know, down to down to Central America. That's when the Gulf Stream hit. You know, they posit that this happened when Atlantis, something else that somebody could trip. I read this book called The Atlantis Enigma. So this isn't something I would say as a world wisdom literature scholar. I'm a postdoctoral scholar. So I just want to say that for people that are skeptic and think this is conspiracy theory.
Slow
Sure,
down for
go
a
ahead.
bit. Slow down for a bit. This is important information, so make it concise.
Yes. So the Atlantis Enigma, they were wondering how it is that there's a certain type of eel. For scientists out there, especially for biologists, marine biologists, you would find this extremely interesting. So there's a type of eel in the Mediterranean that actually goes all the way to the coast of the Atlantic in the the Atlantic eastern provinces of Canada to go lay their eggs. And it makes no sense because they could just go across the Mediterranean Sea. They could go to an island. They could go somewhere else, but they've got built in their ancestral memory that they go lay their eggs. And in the Atlantis Enigma, the author explains that this is right around the time where the Gulf Stream actually started hitting North America and the Ice Age ended. That would have been the fall of Atlantis, but something that they've wiped from civilization. Now, the remnants of Atlantis are posited to be the Azores Islands off the coast of Portugal. That makes sense because Mount Pico is actually one of the tallest volcanoes, and that volcano measured from the base of the Atlantis from its underground source actually is taller or as tall as the Everest is. So that could be easily the volcano when the island of Atlantis was up and didn't collapse and crumble to the bottom of the ocean beyond the mid-Atlantic tectonic plate. Then it would have been covered in kilometers and kilometers of lava from an explosion that massive. And there's many other active volcanoes on the island as well too. So an explosion that could have been triggered the way it's described in certain ancient repositories by some kind of a solar war between Lemuria and Atlantis. So this is something that some people might not want to, delve into because they consider it conspiracy territory. But notice that even on History Channel these days, they're telling you, oh, this new temple we thought was 5,000 years old actually in Malaysia has actually been built 50,000 years ago. Now we've carbon dated it properly. So if our history goes back to way farther than they used to tell us the first civilizations happened about 5,000-6,000 years ago. And everything before that was like, they said basically we were nothing more than apes, or no disrespect to apes whatsoever. Vanada people are amazing, Hanuman's people are amazing, but they said we basically had no civilization until 5,000 years ago, and now suddenly they're discovering that there's ancient civilizations with temples that make the Cheops pyramid look small, all across the Asiatic continents and the islands, that literally, and imagine what's covered under the jungle, under the rubble, what's been destroyed, what's been underwater. So, and then if you go into the inner earth theory of Agartha, hollow earth, very, very interesting theories, because even the Nazis are posited to have built technology in hollow earth and have access to secret portals to go down there. It's not that hard to believe if we can build underground subways, and there's layers of subways under subways from old disaffected ones that they used in the 1800s, then you can imagine how deep underground the caves and connections and networks can go.
Wow.
To me, that's all part of activating our higher self too, because if you think on a conscious level, the conscious activity of your brain is what's going to heighten your vibrational frequency and your awareness. So that's going to heighten your ability to do supernatural things as well.
Yeah, more capacity, more power.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's always been used for good, but some people have used that to be super villains,
Yeah. Yeah, like the more your vessel can contain, then the more you can hold and withstand. Like, for example, if you were to get like tied up to like a tree and someone was like whipping you over and over, and you could be able to like withstand that pain, that's badass.
Yes, exactly. Like Yeshua, like Jesus in the story, like when they put him to death.
Yeah.
So very interesting as well too. There's a native tradition which parallels that in a different sense, which is a warrior tradition. I've been invited to do that. I haven't done it yet because I don't even know if my chest could withstand that, but it's very similar in a different sense to what you just expressed. So you tie yourself to a tree by fishing hooks. Usually, I don't know, depends on the number, depends on the size of your chest, on how many hooks you want to do, but let's say 5 to 11 hooks. And you hook that into your chest and you hang by the tree while you fast for a whole day. And the only way you can actually have a break from that is if the hooks rip out your chest and you fall on the ground. But you have to stay balanced.
Where's the hook? Where's the hook in your chest? How is that? How is that?
Like all over the chest.
Holy
like
shit.
in your pecs.
That holds you up?
Yeah.
Bro,
but not holds you up. It holds you against the trunk of the tree. You have to balance with your feet backwards.
Oh.
So you'd be like, yeah, exactly, stretched out like that.
Hmm. Wow.
So imagine, I did my first, so the first Sundance, you have to go and help at the Sundance and fast and do the sweat lodges, but you know, you don't have the same stringent standards as the Warriors. The Warriors, they do twice the length of sweat lodges. You can stay in for the whole length if you want. I did, but I had a hard time. One time I had to walk out because I was like, this is way too hot because I'm not used to doing that in summer. That was in summer. I do it in winter, but in summer I overheat.
Shit.
So, but one time I drummed so hard that everybody asked me to stop drumming. Literally, because I was drumming. Everybody else was sweating their asses off. I was sweating too, but I was like, I was in a trance. So one of those rounds I did
Oh,
better than everyone. But then one of the rounds I had to walk out.
wow.
It was crazy. It was that was the son, I forget his name. That was been a long, long time. Please forgive me for that. But it's from the Blackfoot Blood Nation, outside of Lethbridge. And it
Oh,
was amazing because the son of that chief, the chief was legendary for pushing the warriors so badly that some of the warriors actually died of heat exhaustion in the sweat lodge because he forced them to stay in the lodge for so long. Like he was hardcore with the warriors. So
so
his son was the one that was leading the sweat lodge.
the sweat lodge that you were in, people died in there.
Yeah, for this for the Sundance for my Enoch Plains Cree Reserve.
Wow. So at that lodge, people died in that lodge. So then maybe like their spirits are still like surrounded in the area.
It's quite possible. I would think they would have transcended because that's hardcore as fuck. If you
Yeah.
actually die in a
You're
sweat
right.
lodge, But that's like to me, it was hearsay. Somebody told me that. I believe it because I believe there's so many stories. I believe there's probably a lot of people who also died doing the warrior training, putting the hooks in their chest, and they could have bled to death.
Yeah.
They could have ripped something out and then had an infection. They could have like it happens, but you have to trust creator. You have to trust the universe. You have to trust that, but they never force anyone to do that. It's only during Sundance protocol. The warrior out of honor will not want to walk out of a sweat lodge. They'd rather die.
Wow. Badass.
Yeah, man. But
Huh.
then you can imagine how badass it is to put fish hooks in your chest and hang by a tree for a day, but you have to fast for 3 days and you have to dance around during the sun around the tree after that.
Hmm. Yeah, and also this whole process of self-betterment, it's not just like a overnight thing or like a one day thing. It's like a continuous lifestyle that you have to maintain. Or else like if you like what I've noticed with myself is like I put myself through a lot of training and mental fortitude, everything like that. And then when you take a break and you start to like take it easy, you become kind of like numb to life because you don't get that excitement anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah.
A lot of people have become numb to reality. I get numb sometimes just sitting around and having a vacation because I have so much free time. I'd rather be giving conferences and guest lectures and doing hip hop and going around doing workshops, chilling around with people, trading stories, like having a good time. That's what I want to do with my life. But sometimes I get bored because like at the end of the day, this is the closest we can come to that right now is doing a podcast like this, which is amazing
Yeah,
because
bro.
it stays, it reverberates and echoes through history. It's documented.
Yeah, it reverberates and echoes throughout everything. Yeah, shit. But that's a good place to end it off. Honestly, I feel like we covered a lot of very, very good things. That
Yeah.
was
So we,
that
we
was
we promised
honestly,
an acid trip. I think we kind of delivered in some ways.
yeah, yeah, in some ways, yeah. But I feel like that was more like informational than anything else. Like it was really cool,
Exactly.
like hearing you talk about history and stuff like that. Like that's really neat. It just shows like this world is so much bigger than you think, and it's like a continuous exploration to see what you can discover, so yeah, keep that nomad traveler mindset, of endless discovery.
Definitely, we should all keep that. That's like the most beautiful thing. Tzigani family, the Gypsy family, people what's referred to derogatorily as gypsies, which actually has to do with the corruption of the term Egypt or Egyptians.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's racist to assume that it's racist to assume that. But
Yeah,
anyways, the point being, we all have that at heart. If we travel around, if we live nomadically, if we live simply, there's a nomadic culture which is worldwide, which is global, and links up the whole diaspora, which is amazing. So that's the greatest tribe on the in the face of the planet. It's the rainbow tribes.
nice. Well, okay, well, thank you, bro. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yo, thank you.
Thank you to the birds and the trees. Thank you to the leaves and the dirt, the sunshine, everything
To the
that,
ganja, to Mapacho, to Gran Padre de la Verdad, muchas gracias. Ken
yeah.
Katlazo Kamati Walmiak. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.